Hello, Culture Matters podcast. I'm excited to introduce you to our guest. Before I do that, here's a quote just for this episode. Rather than love, than money, than fame, give me truth. Henry David Thoreau.
Mm.
Our guest today, good friend of the Culture Matters podcast, someone of courage, sign up for this conversation, these conversations. Founder, Blacktop Banter, friend of construction community,
Mm.
friend of the world.
Mm.
Marvin Joles and I are going through a book we recommend, or maybe we don't,
Yeah, we're gonna find out.
called Walden.
Look how big yours is. Look how like thick and
Oh
girthy
yeah, I
your
got
Walden
the.
is compared to mine.
You're watching us on YouTube, which I challenge you to. My
Yeah.
book's bigger than his.
Yeah. Here we go.
And
Measuring
chapter
up.
one, we're talking about chapter one today.
Correct.
Economy.
Yeah.
We're going to do a series on each chapter. Uh,
Yeah.
why this book? I'm curious why you think this is not a waste of
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Well, I don't know for sure, actually. So we recorded a podcast a month ago or so, and in that we had a deep conversation, and you opened your copy to a quote, the only thing you had highlighted in the book. Right. And then all of a sudden we were like, oh, I wonder what else is in here because neither one of us had read it completely all the way through. And
True.
um, there's tons of quotes and stuff that come from it that we know, but I think we did ourselves an injustice by not reading this one. As I got into it more, I realized Thoreau was a great philosopher of his time, American philosopher. And I enjoy older philosophy when I consume it, but as with time, the philosophy that I consume that was I don't like to say written, but I like to say discovered, closer to us, it's more applicable. It feels like it's more relatable as we get closer. So Walden, um, Thoreau is closer, couple hundred years closer to us than what we thought. But
Hmm.
um, I actually enjoy so far chapter one. I'm not all the way through it. I'm going to be honest with you. I It was really heady for me early on, so I would read a little bit, highlight something, and then I would think about that quite a bit. Um, which is
That
which
makes
is
me feel a lot better.
good, yeah. So I
It's a
have
long chapter.
it's a long chapter, and then he gets into wardrobe, right? Quite a bit about people's wardrobes and the way they dress and what that means and stuff. And he didn't lose me there, but I don't relate so much when we got there. But before that, there were a couple things that I highlighted, and one of them made me. I read it, I thought about it, I read it again to somebody, and when I read it to somebody, I got very emotional about
What
it.
page are we at? Do you recall?
I can't tell you the page, and they're going to be different because your page is you have
Oh,
triple, quadruple the pages I have, but
it may be because I have the copy
I
that
can tell you
has.
where it is though.
Yeah.
If you're looking at it, there's one, two, three, four, five, six paragraphs, and you're there. So he
Oh, in the
talks
beginning.
right in the beginning. Yeah. So it's not too far in. I'll read it if you want, Jay.
Sure. That it actually makes things better. Yeah.
Okay. Um, okay. Most men, even in this comparatively free country, through mere ignorance and mistake, are so occupied with the factitious cares and superfluously coarse
Yeah, that's
labors.
a big
Oh yeah,
word.
yeah. Superfluously coarse labors of life that its finer fruits cannot be plucked by them. Right. So then I had to go back and think about this with the factitious cares, right? These are things they should care about. Fact.
Mm.
And coarse labors of life, that its finer fruits cannot be plucked by them. Their fingers, from excessive toil, are too clumsy and tremble too much for that. Actually, the laboring man has not leisure for a true integrity, for the true integrity day by day. He cannot afford to sustain the manliest relations to men, right? So I think about that. with this guy that's laboring and toiling with doing all that. He can't afford to sustain the manliest relations of men. But in your mind, that's what a man looks like, right? This guy that's working his tail off. His labor would be depreciated in the market. He has no time to be anything but a machine.
Mm.
How can he remember well his ignorance, which his growth requires, who is so often to use his knowledge? We should feed and clothe him gratuitously sometimes, and recruit him with our cordials before we judge of him. The finest qualities of our nature, like the bloom on fruits, can be preserved only by the most delicate handling, yet we do not treat ourselves nor one another thus tenderly. First one, like right out of the gate, 5 or 6 paragraphs in, that set the foundation. And I think that's kind of why I'm also disappointed in chapter one, because like I hit that one, I was like, oh, this is gonna be good, really good. And then from there, I think I highlighted one more thing, maybe two, and then we get into like you were talking about the economic side of everything, right? And what everybody's chasing and their clothes and how it's materialistic, and we know all these things. And he talks about his clothes and whatnot as well, and how he has so little. But that one really got me because I think that's kind of the basis of what you and I were talking
Mm.
about when you grabbed your copy. We were talking about these men who chase and chase and chase and chase and acquire, and then they turn to the guys who didn't do that because early on they had it figured out. And that's kind of what he's hinting to here. So I'm excited to see how it relates all the way through.
Wow. And then they turn to those that already had it figured out.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that passage, right? Because he, he he talks about the man being a machine, right? And I say the hamster wheel or whatever that I try to relate it to, but essentially you and I talked about that like NPCs, like robots, like we're into society. Society tells them, go to school, get a good job, get married, have kids, buy a house, do this on repeat, save up for retirement, retire and die. And at some point, and I I I refuse to believe n- any intelligent human doesn't have this feeling at some point of this is not what I'm supposed to be doing, right? During their process, if they're doing that. Now, there are a few who are outliers, like Thoreau, and I would consider myself in that mix where you figure that out.
Hmm.
And during the process, we try to balance out being in the hamster wheel, but also keeping our hands delicate enough to be able to pluck the fruit that Thoreau talks about through life, right? So we don't miss it. Um, and those are the two things. There's a guy that toils away inside that hamster wheel, and then there's the guys who you and I talk about who figure out the game, get to the top of the game, beat the game, and then look back and realize they didn't get educated along. They didn't stop to figure out how to pluck the fruit. Even though their hands aren't toiling anymore, they're still clumsy because they weren't educated or didn't take the time to observe where the fruit is, how to handle it, along the way.
It's as if there's nothing left of them. Their spirit has manifested itself in commodity,
Mm-hmm.
in brand,
Mm-hmm.
in in something that the the crowd can feast upon.
Yeah.
They're gone.
Yeah.
There's some eerie, maybe eerie, creepy beauty in that in some level. That may be because I'm convincing myself of my sacrifice, my blood sacrifice. It's as if I'm been I'm in line. Okay, I picture the Aztecs
Mm-hmm.
and a long line of people waiting for their heart to be ripped out of their chest,
Mm-hmm.
their
Mm-hmm.
body to fall down like
Mm-hmm.
down the
Yeah.
pyramid, and the blood to be running and gushing and everyone's cheering in the
Yeah. Yeah.
yes. And right now, personally, I'm in line anticipating and
Yeah.
excited and feel, proud that on track to be chosen. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking for myself.
Yeah.
And So the incentives, the everything, my life is set up in a way where I'm incentivized to make a case that there's an eerie beauty in the fact that the literate industrialist sacrifices their spirit for the betterment of the materialist, the for the
We
betterment of the
we hope.
resource growth of the group. Meaning,
Yeah.
if I go on this journey and I stay stupefied,
Hmm.
but I'm useful,
Hmm.
my resentments drive my productivity, and I
Hmm.
create this company.
Hmm.
These widgets are created. Everyone else benefits, in their food
Yes.
consumption, their water consumption, their material, their social consumption. So essentially, I'm gonna get at the end my heart ripped out of my chest.
Yeah. So I drink
Oh,
coffee. I drink decaf for about 90 minutes to 120 minutes, and then I load up with some leaded stuff. This is leaded, but so I try to observe what's directly around me. I believe no matter what, whatever you're reading, whatever your mind is thinking about, it will find connections around you in the atoms where things are collected, right? And my coffee cup's a collection of atoms massed together, right? Because they're attracted to each other. Same thing with this microphone with my body and everything. And when I think about this passage and I think about those things, I like your analogy of being one of the Mayans. Mine was a coffee can. And I think about this coffee can when it's fresh and it's packed full of all this energy. And the coffee can doesn't necessarily like it's excited because it serves a purpose. It has all this potential to do so much, but the coffee can doesn't pull from its own supply. Everybody else does, right? And they pull from it until it's empty, until its lifespan of what's inside of it is empty. The coffee can never reaps the benefit of its own supply, right? But it gives and gives and gives because that's its job until it gets to the end, right? And then when it's at the end, most of the time, whoever has been pulling from it takes this can and throws it away because it's empty. They don't need it. You know what they do? They buy a new can. The coffee can didn't mean anything to them. The only thing that meant to them was what is inside and what it supplies for them for a time being. The coffee can sits alone in the trash, disregarded of. I thought that being a coffee can was fantastic because it had purpose and I had this. But you know what? It's not so great being a coffee
I
can.
love this, and I love this metaphor because
I
if
should have
I
been.
live my life as a can and not the quality of the bean,
Yeah. Yep. Yes,
I
I
mean,
should.
you're giving me a call to action to, in the end, my body is going to be, or like everything that's outside of how I labor is going to be
Mhm.
taken for granted by the other.
Yeah. So
Like
it's
I want
not.
to be the bean, not the can, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. I think that
I don't know.
that's.
What comes to mind with it?
Uh, I think that there's with the realization of that during the process, the can should have been like, no, this is mine. These are mine. It's in me. I'm going to use it the way that I want to use it. And I think that the world, right, the machine, the system tells us that's selfish. Right? You shouldn't be selfish. Well, in the end, you aren't going to care anyways. You're going to move on. The machine, the wheel will grab new energy from somewhere. It doesn't necessarily need mine. That's something that I'm told early on that this is why I'm here. I'm the can full of coffee so the coffee can get consumed by the rest of the world. But in the end, if I'm going to feel empty, literally and metaphorically, why am I doing this? I shouldn't be. I should be putting it where I want to and using it the way I want to so I'm not spent. I don't want to end up spent. And then when I had all of this, I let everybody else consume it for something else that doesn't really matter to me in the end, anyways, right? So that's what I think about. And when Thoreau talks about that, it's a little different than what he spoke exactly, because he talks about how you miss out on the ability to find
Hmm.
what's good and what is fruitful along the journey when you're so consumed with working the 9 to 5, clocking in, clocking out, dulling away this thought, right? We were talking about this thought that I know has to manifest in everybody at some time. The best way to do that is distract yourself with substance or something else, whether you're the guy at the bar all the time or consuming something else, um, so that you don't think about, hey, somebody, where's all my coffee going, right? Like, where are all the beans going? Oh, I just wake up and I dump a little more out and I dump a little more out and I don't know why I'm doing this. I don't enjoy it. I realize this is what it is, but now I'm trapped here. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. And I think that's the dichotomy that he sets the base for and sets the foundation for here going forward. I'm going to read one more, right? It's the next page. One, two, three, four, or one, two, three, four. Yeah, 4 or 5 paragraphs later. One farmer says to me, and this is kind of like the realization, right, that we start to have after that first paragraph I read. One farmer says to me, "You cannot live on vegetable food solely, for it furnishes nothing to make bones with." And so he religiously devotes a part of his day to supplying his system with raw material of bones. Walking all the while, he talks behind his oxen, which, with vegetable made bones, jerk him with his lumbering plow along in spite of every obstacle. Some things are really necessaries of life in some circles, the most helpless and diseased, which in others are luxuries merely, and in others still are entirely unknown. So here's this guy, right? The system, the guy that's in the system, the farmer. Man, you can't just live on vegetables alone. You need meat, you need potatoes. Here's this guy that is quote unquote making it, preaching to everybody, this is how you do it. But yet the observationist, right, sees this huge oxen built entirely of muscle and strong bone that only eats vegetables. The observationist says, oh, something's off about that, right? Something, you're contradicting yourself, right? Because your oxen, who you feed hay to, is the machine you need that is built of strong bone, strong muscle, everything. And it lets you know the farmer hasn't
Is it a
thought
metaphor about the choice of choosing to be a part of this civilization versus
I
go
think
and
so.
go make your bed, build your we I mean, I think we could set the frame for the audience. Walden, this guy who was classically trained at Harvard, went a mile out and lived for 26 months alone in a little on a lake,
Yeah,
and he built his own house because
he
I
did. There was a cabin there, I believe, and then
he built a house too. Okay, the cabin. He went to a cabin.
yeah, yeah, I went to a cabin and then
And he lived alone with his
lived
own in his
alone.
own.
He did. He had a desk, had a small bed, a fireplace, and that was really it. And then observed there was a lake there, Walden Lake, and he hung out there, went to town, and just observed. To me, and he says he observed for more than 2 years the nature
What a
around him, and
powerful
the human,
thought
very
experiment.
powerful, very powerful. To me, it sounds like a dream right now.
It's what you've been doing
It has been in
at
proximity.
some level, I think.
But I
You're an
admire
observation.
him cutting him. He cut completely. Like he just cut off and was like, this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna observe only and then jot it down and bring it together. And when I think about the farmer, he's observing. To the farmer, what he spoke was the truth, right? To the farmer, that was the truth.
Yeah.
That's what worked for his system. That's what he believed in his system. And then to Thoreau, the observation was the truth, right? And he didn't say, "Listen, farmer, you're wrong." Like we do that on social media nowadays. You see it, right, Jay? Like he observed it. He understood in his own being that that truth wasn't his truth, but it was the farmer's truth. And Thoreau didn't go to the farmer and say, "Hey, you're wrong. Let me tell you why." Thoreau just jots down an observation and lets the farmer toil away, right? He's an observationist of the machine of the system. Okay, this is how the system works. This is what I recognize. I choose not to do this. I'm going to do this. But I will let I think that this has been my pain, right? Seeing that this is the way the system works, seeing that the humans that are in it are the farmers, and it's much better for them to be ignorantly blissful and justified for their journey. Are they going to get to the end and be like, man, I shouldn't have toiled away all the time? Maybe. But me chirping and making their journey distraught by trying to enlighten them probably isn't a good thing. Maybe they get to the end and they enjoy it, right? Me disrupting that journey probably isn't a good thing, but observing it for my own accordance, similar to how Thoreau did, I think if you're enlightened, is necessary because I have to work this out or I'm going to be the one distraught along the way, right? I won't be able to pluck the fruits if I don't observe them well. And I think that, uh, you know, Thoreau making that observation about that farmer, that's how he thinks. That's how 98% of our society thinks right now, right? You can't do this, you can't do that. It doesn't work out. It's the same way. Go to college, get educated, get a good job, work for somebody, get married, have kids, get in debt, chase this thing, right? And they're justifying it. You know why the farmer told him that? Probably because his dad told him that, or the other farmers told him that. So never did he observe on his own. He just took what was he was told and repeated it. I see it a lot. We see it a lot in the construction industry too, right? So it's an observation of life. That observation hasn't changed in 200 years.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Here's a quote. Did he cut off or did he choose a new master? Is
Thoreau.
the fight to rebel
Oh.
or to participate so uniquely within proximity? One changes, distorts, disrupts, or shocks the system.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just
Mm-hmm.
let's say we have a binary of staying. Let's
Mm-hmm.
say Thoreau was stayed like amongst the crowd,
Mm-hmm.
or the book, right? Away, observing. So let's say we have the binary.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just thought a scenario where he's physically stayed, but the values of the observationist, the values of the leaving proximally are integrated into the crowd.
Mm-hmm.
What could come of that? Well, I would think a hell of a lot of conflict.
It is.
This is like a thought experiment, right? Did if I go out there and I
Mm-hmm.
get totally entrenched physically in the world,
Mm-hmm.
um,
You become blind.
am I a part of another mat? Did I cut off or am I? Well, I guess we'll find out as we go through this book.
Yeah.
We're
Well,
only in chapter one, but
yeah. Well, you're speaking about the two trajectories, right? There's the one you're born into, where you essentially you're blind and you don't know it, right? You're young, so you're just following in line. And you can stay there. There are people who stay there until the end of their life. And then there's the other side where something happens where you become enlightened, whether you start to ponder or you start to think or you philosophize. You don't realize you're philosophizing, right? You and I have had this conversation about me. I didn't realize that's what I was doing. And the more I did it, the more I did it. And the more I went to that side, I could completely lose myself there. And it sounds to me, uh, that's romantic for me. I would love for Thoreau to have went all the way, right? You and I, we talk about that Bukowski code. I would love for him to have went all the way because I want to see what's there without me having to do it. Because to completely disconnect from here means
wow.
madness. In some people's sense, it's going to be madness in the way the society looks at it, right? But you're searching for what matters over there, and you may find it, and it may be something that looks insignificant compared to the other binary where everybody started. That's the struggle. And yes, I believe there is a way to weave it all together. And I think that that's what we as philosophers are trying to find during our short time here. How do we do that? How do we feed being away with, but also, yeah, how do we feed being away with the machine, right? What we're born into. And then how do we bring back what we know from what we find out into the machine to make them work in symbiosis? You know me well enough to know that I am extremely unmaterialistic at this point. So my motives for making the machine work for me aren't to get things at this point, right? Um,
Well, Thoreau would challenge you for wearing a shirt.
Yes, absolutely. Right. He would. And that's the
Yeah.
beauty, right? That lets you know that he,
That's one of the parts of this chapter one. Yeah, like
yeah.
the uh
Hmm.
the clothing.
Starts talking about wardrobe.
He
Yeah.
talks about clothing, he talks about housing,
Yeah.
he talks about at the end philanthropy,
Yeah. He
giving
knows.
selfishly.
He knows his thought has went where our thoughts have. And that's the beauty of where uh, I was thinking about philosophy between you and I, and also thinking about all the quotes that we know and the people that we draw from. Philosophy is an ongoing thing. It's a realm where select few dive into because the similarities between quotes, whether it's Aristotle, Thoreau, myself, uh, one of my favorite philosophers, uh, as of right now is Alex Hormozy, and he might not say that, but he thinks about these types of things quite a bit. And he'll put these quotes out and people love them. You know why they love them? Because it comes from a realm where their heart has searched, even in the most minute amount. And that's why the Walden did so well. It's not because there's millions and millions of philosophers, deep philosophers that consume this book. It's because there's a little bit of philosophy in everybody. They've seen that spark and they read it and the words resonate with them some. And that's the journey on some of these books, and these are the things that they know that he's speaking truth, like you said at the beginning, that quote you started with, truth. Like they know that it's truth in here. It's what do they do with it? You either ignore it or you start to use it, and it's a scary thing when you start to use it because you see, like Thoreau scene, the clothes don't matter, houses don't matter, there's few necessities: water, food, and shelter, right, at some point. um, Let me get one more in before we get going. Um, I don't know what page it is or what paragraph, but it's still first chapter. When a man is warned by several modes which I've described, what does he want next? Surely not more warmth of the same kind, right? This is when we've figured it out. As more and richer food, larger and more splendid houses, finer and more abundant clothing, more numerous, incessant, and hotter fires, and the like. When he has obtained those things which are necessary to life, there is another alternative than to obtain the superfluities, and that is to adventure on life now, his vacation from his humble toil having commenced. The soil, it appears, is suited to the seed, for it has sent to its radical downward, and it may now send its shoot upward also with confidence. Why has a man rooted himself thus firmly in the earth, but that he may rise in the same proportion to the heavens above? For the nobler plants are valued for the fruit they bear at last in the air and in the light far from the ground, which are not treated the like with the humbler esculents, which, though they may be biennials, are cultivated only till they have perfected their root, and often cut down at top for the purpose, so that most of the world would not know them in their flowering season. That's the machine taking you, right? That's you seeing a little bit of philosophy, of your dream, of your passion, of what could be,
Hmm.
and the world being what cuts that down and keeps it contained. And that's what happens if I would have stayed in the machine, into the system, that's what would have happened to me. And I worry now that I'm still so much part of that system and that machine that I'm cutting myself short of the flower. I think about our last interaction where I talk about the Bukowski quote, and you're like, go, like do it, like go all the way, lose all these things, do it. And that's because you have what I have, where we both know that's where this plant flowers. That's where you get to see what it is. And to me and to Walden, that's the whole point of being alive. That's the whole point of us being here, is so that we can see what we are, and so the world can see what we are. The problem is when you become a flower, you pluck it for somebody else most of the time, right? If you're outside of that flower, you pluck it because
Hmm.
you want it. You don't want to grow yourself. You don't want to do the work and have to do what it takes to get there, but you're okay with plucking it, right? But there's some people who know what that flower went through to get there, where they're like, no, 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 don't pluck that thing. Don't pluck that thing. Like let that thing grow. Let it do its thing. And I think that's the season I'm in right now. I think that's why Walden's resonating so well.
I highlighted this, and I'm not sure why. My purpose is going to Walden Pond, was not to live cheaply nor to live dearly there, but to transact some private business with the fewest obstacles,
Mm.
to be hindered from accomplishing which, for want of little common sense, a little enterprise and business talent, appeared not so sad or foolish. I have always endeavored to acquire strict business habits. They are indispensable to every man.
Hmm.
Just
It's a dichotomy you were speaking of earlier. Like, can we do both? Can we go over there and come back over here onto the business side and have it help us accomplish this at the end? You know what? You know what, Jay? A lot of people right now, our age, are working for retirement, right? Why? Why? So that they can relax and think and enjoy life. They they're doing what we're doing. It's just that their exchange is all in on the original side with the hopes and dreams when they get to the other side, it'll be there. But if you go to a nursing home, my grandmother worked at a nursing home, and I would sit down and play cards with these
mm,
guys. When you get to the end, they're like, I worked too much. I should have spent more time traveling, right? I should have spent more time with my family. I wish I would have spent more time with my friends, right? They got to the other side. They had this freedom. They did the exchange, but by the time they got to the end, the fields were dried up. The fruit had been plucked or just died in general. The fruit of their life had just died because it stood on the tree so long and fell and rotted back into the earth, right? And what do? We sow seeds back into the soil, my children, my grandchildren, in hopes that the fruit will bear again and somebody will pluck it. Why not? Why are we not plucking the fruit? Because our hands are too clumsy and too calloused from being in the machine. And Walden observed that. Like, I'm excited to get into the book even farther because he sets the base in chapter 1 for what an amateur philosopher like myself has observed already.
mm.
Right, right. But that's the beauty of philosophy. There's no real guidance or direction besides your mind and people who have philosophized before.
As we go through this book, um, I'd like to challenge the audience to the general theme, an implicit theme of this series as we're going chapter by chapter. Walden, Henry David Thoreau. I read a quick passage. There is no single way to read well, though there is a prime reason why we should read. Information is endlessly available to us. Where shall wisdom be found?
Mm,
If you are fortunate, you encounter a particular teacher who can help. Yet finally, you are alone, going on without further mediation. Reading well is one of the great pleasures that solitude can afford you, because it is, at least in my experience, the most healing of pleasures. It returns you to otherness, whether in yourself or in friends, or in those who may become friends. Imaginative literature is otherness, and as such, alleviates loneliness.
mm,
We read not only because we cannot know enough people, but because friendship is so vulnerable, so likely to diminish or disappear, overcome by space, time, imperfect sympathies, and all the sorrows of familial and passional life. That's an excerpt from the preface of How to Read and Why by Harold Bloom, the late Harold Bloom, one of the most renowned universal teachers of literature, literary criticism.
mm-hmm.
And so for our audience, please share this episode, Marvin, to someone, like what one person that needs to hear it. And please leave a review
Mm.
of what you think. on the Culture Matters podcast. I'm now asking for that, by the way. That's an insight from a conversation just last night. I realized, oh my
Mhm,
gosh, I'm going to ask for help sharing these messages.
mhm,
In closing, I'd like to know what you think about what I just read
mhm,
and what your call to action for the audience with Walden is.
mhm. So when you're reading that, it reminds me, right? So when we read versus the friendship part, I can always go back to Thoreau. I never knew him in person, right? But I can go back and read this, and when I read this, there's an exchange there that he never knew between my mind and his. And I can go back to this conversation. It's literally me asking Thoreau to tell me about this again. Tell me the story again, right? Because I've put thought into it. Explain to me again. I can read it. His words are there again for me to read and consume. And it reminds me of Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, where it's full of business stuff. And then when you get to the end, he talks about his mastermind. Well, his mastermind was of people he had never met before. Abraham Lincoln, right, was in his mastermind. So in his mind, these are his friends. These are people he can go to. They will never change or leave if he holds them that close. And the only way he gets an insight where he looks at them as friends is if he reads the words they wrote, if he understands what they meant when they said that. And people, authors like Thoreau, have done a great job in relaying their thoughts to us through words on a page, through language, which is difficult in itself. You and I have spoke about that, where language almost seems barbaric in order to relay the thoughts. That's why it took Thoreau going to this cabin, sitting down, being a void from any distraction, so that he could have this business with himself that he's talking about, is all these thoughts and emotions where he needed to be very clear so that he could relay them very clear out on paper for himself, I believe. But as a byproduct of that, there was something put on paper that we get to consume as well. That's why I believe it's important to read, um, and have the understanding of that. And like I can quote that um, Napoleon Hill book. I can quote The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, which started me on this journey, I believe. I can do that because these are conversations with my friends, even though they don't know they're my friends or were my friends or anything, because they meant something, right? There's a reason why I got emotional when I read that first passage here with Thoreau, because it resonates with me. I would hope my friends speak to me like that and know me well enough to say those things to me, because I need that consolation as I get farther away from the mass. And the only way you can do that is to find a baseline with reading, I would believe.
Hmm. Thank you all for listening to this episode, and we'll see you next time, the Culture Matters podcast.